Well, this book fails whatever the Bechdel test of describing women without talking about how fat and therefore disgusting they are. Um, Hi, I'm Olivia. This is AV Club where I talk about horror, lit fic, weird books, whatever I want to talk about. And today I will be doing a book review of Futility by Nuzo Onoh. So, kind of joking about the Bechdel test thing. I don't really go by hard and fast rules about what is or what isn't problematic, but I do have some concerns with how this book was written. I usually am always a spoiler-free book reviewer, and this one a little bit different because there's not really spoilers. Nothing really changes throughout the narrative of the book. And I do think that talking about everything that happens is kind of necessary to why I had such problems with the book. So there's no real twist or even character development, so there's nothing really to spoil, but just wanted to warn you in advance. I'm going to talk specifically about the ending to the story at some point in this because the implications are not good. But I'll cover my pros as well. It wasn't all bad. I gave it 2 stars. It could have been worse. So this story primarily follows two female characters, Chia, who is a restaurant owner in Nigeria, as well as Claire, who is a British government visa office worker living in Nigeria. Let me be clear, I know these characters are supposed to be taken as not good people. This is like a revenge story, but kind of like a fuck around and find out story. Like the characters are bad and doing bad things, and they should get punished. It's really in the how of the story being told that it falls flat. Chia, she's making her dreams come true with the deity by sacrificing men in order to get wishes granted. Her wishes granted involve like her restaurant being really successful, and primarily to the story that men see her as their most beautiful woman. So people will be in the restaurant and be like, Nicki Minaj, come over here, Beyonce, come over here, Rihanna, come over here, like, that all these men are projecting their fantasies on her, and that's like something that's really important to the story. Otherwise, her internal dialogue, but also just how the story is third person describing her, is says that she is so fat all the time, and different ways of telling her how fat she is. I was amazed at how many times the word fat or synonyms were crammed into this. It was so repetitive, and it was always negative. It was always just beating you over the head with how fat and therefore ugly these characters are. Like I did like a control F of fat in the story, and there was like 14 or 17 pages of it on my Kobo. Some of those fats were found in father, so I did a second search of just obese, and that also came up with multiple pages, so like at least like 20 times that the word obese was used in like a 200 something page book. And again, always negative, always paired with an insult to the woman. Claire also, who works in the visa office, she is a actually bad person. Like she is racist, and she has like this Nigerian boyfriend that she feels like she has like this power dynamic over. There's microaggressions. She makes everyone call him Cole instead of his like real name, which is like Kolade. And like she is not a good person. But again, wouldn't you know, she's fat too, fat and horrible, ugly because she's fat. Like I could not get over it. I believe that the intent of these characters, especially in a horror novel, was to talk about anxieties around fatness or to be a critique of British imperialism and those ideals being brought into Nigeria. Like, I'm not assigning these beliefs to the author. I can only take it as they were written in the narrative. And if nothing else, it was so repetitive, it just did not add anything. First of all, if you don't like unlikable characters, this is not the book for you. I love unlikable characters, but I do think that they need to be complex, more complex, if we were meant to follow just these two characters through the whole story. I'm not against campy, over the top personifications of people, but again, if I'm following you for the whole story and all you can do is just like repeat these same horrible things over and over again and like not even varying it up, that's an issue. That's an issue with like how the book is written, not necessarily like saying it's problematic because of it, but like literally what is the point? And again, it's not just these horrible characters that are reinforcing these stereotypes and talking all this vitriol about fat women. It is also the omniscient narrator. It is the deities in the story that are reinforcing this. So it doesn't really work as a critique if there is like no target and if it is not sharpened towards anything. It's just hate. It's just a lot of hate in the book. This book is marketed as like a feminist revenge novel, and I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think we read the same book. And to say it's about feminine rage, I think is also not fair. Like, if anything, it's just about self hate. So it doesn't seem to work well as a critique of fat phobia in society because every voice within the narrative contributes to it and there's no critique of it within the text from any character. And it doesn't really seem to be a good critique of British imperialism. Both of the characters are so heavily invested in British imperialism, and it's like Chia's number one goal to get to go to have a British travel visa so she can go shopping in Princess Diana's mall. And there's no foil to this in any part of the story. There's no one that really gives any kind of balance towards it. Claire also gets a turn where her wishes are getting granted, and they're both just wanting terrible things, and guess what? They're getting them. They're getting all the terrible things they want. Claire also, of course, is fat and she hates herself, because why wouldn't she? And she also gets to be seen as a beautiful, skinny woman, and her life is so much better because of it. There's really no negative repercussions for the characters and the terrible things they're doing throughout the story until the very end, where it's just like, oh, they asked for too much. And it wasn't that the types of things that they were being asked for weren't valid, it was just that they kept wanting more and more. And we love horrible people getting scammed. Like, that's a good story. However, the punishment did not fit the crime. Please excuse the location change. There was construction that started right outside the sunroom, and I decided that was not the vibe. So here we go. If this book imagines that there's anything worse than being a fat person, it is being a disabled person. The crimes throughout the book of these women wanting horrible things and killing people in order to make their dreams come true is punished with becoming disabled, becoming paralyzed from the waist down and being in a wheelchair. And this book imagines that there is nothing worse than being disabled, that a person who is disabled cannot live a full life and be happy. The only other disabled person in this book has a unknown diagnosis. It's Chia's brother, and they just say that he has a special brain. It's unclear if he's autistic or has an intellectual disability because he doesn't really get to say a whole lot. Like, he speaks, he's a speaking person, but doesn't really get to say much. And he is sacrificed at the end of the story and treated as if he is like so pure, of such pure mind. It's so dehumanizing to talk about a person who clearly does have friends in the world and speaks to other people and just treats them like, oh, they were so faultless, they were such a little lamb. It's just like insulting. It's not the vibe. There's also the issue with how it treats queer characters. There are two trans twins that are brought into the story for a couple of paragraphs. They are introduced as trans immediately, and then it immediately goes into how they were star athletes before they transitioned, invoking like the current turfy fears about trans people in sports. Like, I just hate it. And then it mentions they're trans one more time. It says the trans twins, the trans twins, the trans twins, and then it just doesn't refer to them again because they served their purpose in the narrative. And I just don't know how well it would work as a critique of British imperialism when the only character that is given a charitable interpretation in the whole book is literally Tom Hiddleston. What? He's for some reason the only person who sees his significant other as his most beautiful woman through Chia's gift curse of being seen as like the most beautiful person. I don't know, it's kind of convoluted. And honestly, that's a pro. Like, here's my pros. I love how wild and weird it is. Like, I do think that it's over the top, and that should have been good. That should have been a fun time. I think it's cool that she ran a restaurant that got her wishes granted and that they ate people. That's fine. Two, I think that the writing was funny. I think that it was funny at times that characters would just be very blunt in a way that was humorous, like just being like, I ate your son. I ate him. Funny. Three, I think that ironically, the food writing was really well done. And there's a lot of like cool food writing, even though, yeah, they're eating people, but I love writing about food. Fourth, I love that the dedication was that this book was dedicated to me. I think that's a slay. Like, go for it. But the writing, it was really repetitive, very adverby, very, I mean, like I said, it was just like page after page. Every single page was about just how fat they were. Like comically so, but not comically so because it was not good. And it relied so much on bioessentialism of what it means to be a man or a woman. And that did not help that only women could get these wishes granted and only men could be the sacrifices. Like, I think whenever you set up a speculative world, making it so men and women, that binary is like a real thing, is not good, especially whenever your trans characters were treated so bizarrely, to say the least. Our main characters, Chia and Claire, were both over the top and yet completely flat. There was no character development, there was no nuance. And like I said, like, I don't mind characters being unlikable, campy, over the top, but that was the whole book. But the whole book was following their perspectives, and you just need a little bit something more, or it needs to have variations in tone and pace and intensity if it's going to not be nuanced in other ways. This is a very awarded author, and I was not expecting to not have a good time with this. I thought this was going to be an easy win kind of book. And so I am confused. I'm confused what the book that other people were reading was, how they interpreted it as a feminist novel. I truly don't get it. And again, racism, imperialism, those are ugly topics. And it makes sense to have a ugly, weird, violent novel responding to that, but I just don't think it was done well in this story. But really, what you get in the first few pages is what you get through the whole novel. Chia wants bad things. Chia is selfish and will do anything to maintain the illusions that she has. Claire is horrible and racist and doesn't really care for her boyfriend and thinks terrible things about other women. Actually, all women think terrible things about other women in the story, which makes the bioessentialism even worse because the men are not thinking terrible things about the other men. Not everything can be a winner, but I really thought this one was going to be from the premise. So I'm disappointed, surprised, but mostly I'm curious. What did you think about the story if you've read it? Did you interpret things in a different way? Again, I don't think that this is like the author's real beliefs. I think it's supposed to be a story about how horrible they are, but again, yeah, whenever there's no movement to it, there's no balance to it, it just didn't work. Thank you for joining me. I'm not usually so negative in book reviews. So if you would like to check out more recent horror book reviews, I have them here on this channel. And yeah, I will be back to talk about books again soon. Bye.